I agreed with a statement you made earlier that I don't know if Americans today could come together like the country did in the 40s to face Germany and true, what I would say was true evil in the world. But if there's ever a chance that may happen again in the future, I really believe it's only going to be possible if we know we did it before.
Yeah.
Which is the importance of the work you do. Right? Because if, you know, like we get on social media and stuff all the time and it's very divisive and separates us, what you're doing is saying, hey, wait a second, world. All these strangers from all over our country that didn't know anybody went to this dusty Wendover, Utah. And one of their missions actually ended the war.
Right.
Right. So when, and it's funny because a lot of times people find history boring, but history is hope for the future, which is the danger of erasing history.
Absolutely.
So what would you say to somebody that shows up and wants to erase your history? What would you say to that person in response?
I think most likely an individual who would show up wanting that, whether they're, I'll talk a little bit more about the history in a bit, but whether they're more concerned about our relation to the atomic mission, and I mean just the horrors that unfortunately wreaked, or our history overall, training these bomber crews and thinking we're more warmongers trying to preserve a history like this. The reason that I got into these individuals was not, I mean, absolutely, airplanes are amazing. Some of this firepower, these weapons, I mean, what humans can create is unfortunately impressive. But it was the stories and it was the bonds, the brotherhoods of air crews, the acts of love that you see throughout, I mean, the ugliest times in human history. There are so many acts of love between comrades and even between enemies. I think all of that can be highlighted in efforts of just regular individuals overcoming amazing things, overcoming awful things, simply because there's a need. And this base absolutely represents that. We had tens of thousands of guys come through here because it's what they needed to do, help defend the nation, help defend their families. And they did hard things, living in a desert base like this here in Wendover, just to prepare to head to combat where, I mean, life expectancy was absolutely awful for these guys, but they were willing to do it. So that is absolutely something that needs to be preserved and recognized. There are ugly sides all around for particularly war. We need to acknowledge those, but again, we can't forget them. So please don't erase this.
That's that's a powerful message there, Landon.
Yeah.
And I like how you did commend the incredible mechanical feats of these airplanes and these weapons and the firepower that we've created. But you mentioned that what was most impactful to you was these acts of love between comrades and enemies. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether or not you think that these types of powerful acts of love are possible to exist without such horror and tragedy in the world? Or do you think it's because of this horror and tragedy that we experience that it caused these incredible acts of love to happen? What are your thoughts there?
I think acts like those can happen every day. I think they're just all the more outstanding in the midst of something like a war where you don't expect that. There's hatred all around. I mean, there's propaganda to make these people hate one another. And yet deep down, just as far as humanity goes, they realize there's more that they can do to help someone else. And they put that effort in.